Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something really key as we get older. What's on our plates? Specifically, meat.
That's right. We've been looking at a source that focuses pretty intensely, actually, on meat choices for people over 60. It asks this really vital question.
Which isn't
Which meats are basically your best friends for healthy aging? And, well, which ones are maybe acting like silent killers?
silent killers. Wow. Okay, so our mission here is to unpack what this source is saying, right?
Yeah.
How different meats impact energy, muscle, memory, longevity even.
Exactly. It really frames your food choices, particularly meat, as this powerful tool, either helping you stay strong and sharp or contributing to that decline we sometimes see.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you have some control. It's not just about, feeling tired. It's tackling muscle wasting, brain fog, how well you recover from things.
And this source, it doesn't hold back. It calls out some meats that, frankly, a lot of people probably think are fine, maybe even healthy.
Oh, I know. There's one on his danger list, number 2, I think. It really surprised me. We'll get to that.
Yep.
But let's start positive. What meats does this source say we should be eating?
Okay, first on the must-eat list, the source calls it a quiet hero,
Oh.
often overlooked, turkey breast.
A quiet hero. Interesting. Why turkey breast? What makes it so essential, especially, for older adults, according to this source?
Protein. It really emphasizes the protein content, like over 25 grams of lean protein in a serving.
Wow.
And for aging bodies, that's just critical. Protein fights sarcopenia, that muscle loss that happens
Oh,
naturally.
that makes you stronger.
Yeah, it helps build and repair muscle, which means fewer falls, bouncing back quicker if you get sick, just more energy day to day.
So it's literally fuel for fighting that physical decline. Any other key nutrients it highlights?
Selenium is a big one it points to. Selenium helps protect your cells from damage, keeps your thyroid working right. That affects your metabolism, And it even helps make serotonin, which impacts your mood. The source kind of suggests if you're feeling low energy, maybe a bit down, or your metabolism's sluggish, selenium deficiency could be playing a part.
Huh. It's wild how a mineral in turkey connects to mood and energy levels.
It really is. Shows how interconnected everything is. Plus, the source notes the basics. Naturally low in fat, low in sodium, so good for blood pressure, good for cholesterol, just a clean protein source.
But, and this seems important, there's a catch, right? The distinction the source makes.
A huge one, absolutely vital. Stick to the fresh stuff. Unseasoned cuts you cook yourself. It draws a very, very clear line against the processed deli turkey, that stuff. It shows up later on the avoid list. Big time.
Got it. Whole, fresh turkey breast.
Okay.
Next up on the good list, this one the source says is maybe a bit counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Skinless chicken thigh, not breast.
Yeah, this is interesting. The source argues that skinless thigh has more monounsaturated fat. That's the good kind, like an olive oil. And that type of fat actually helps lower the bad LDL cholesterol, maybe even bumps up the good HDL cholesterol. So it's good for your heart.
So a little healthy fat is actually a benefit here. Does it say why that fat is especially useful as we age?
It does. It suggests that as we get older, sometimes our bodies aren't quite as good at absorbing certain vitamins, the fat-soluble ones, D, E, K.
The ones important for bones, eyes, immunity.
Exactly. And that little bit of healthy fat in the chicken thigh actually helps your body grab onto those vitamins better, helps with absorption.
That makes total sense. Using one nutrient to unlock others. What else about chicken thighs?
Well, the source highlights iron and zinc, too. Key for preventing anemia, keeping your immune system strong so you can fight off infections.
Which is relevant, as the source points out. Seniors sometimes get sick more easily or take longer to recover.
Precisely. Chicken thigh can sort of support that resilience.
And what about the worry some people have? That dark meat isn't as healthy, or it raises cholesterol. Does the source address that? Yep, tackles it directly. Says skinless chicken thigh doesn't raise cholesterol like, say, conventional red meat might. And it even mentions studies suggesting that swapping out red meat for skinless chicken thigh could lower your risk of heart disease, stroke, diabetes.
Interesting. So simple preparations are key.
Yeah, recommends things like cooking it with garlic and herbs, or maybe using it in stews with lots of veggies.
Oh, yeah. Must. Moving on. The next one, the source basically calls practically a superfood for seniors, wild-caught salmon.
Ah, yes, salmon. And the big deal here, according to the source, is omega-3 fatty acids. It calls them incredibly powerful against inflammation.
Inflammation? the Soren calls it the hidden enemy of aging, right? What does that mean?
It argues that this constant low-level inflammation damages cells everywhere, hardens arteries. It's like an underlying cause for tons of age-related issues, joint pain, heart problems, even cognitive decline.
Wow.
And the omega-3s in salmon, they're potent anti-inflammatories. They help calm things down, keep your systems running smoother, feeling, younger. That definitely explains the superfood label. Does the source give any specific numbers or stats to back that up?
It does, and they're pretty striking. It claims eating just 2 servings of wild-caught salmon a week could cut your heart attack risk by 30%.
30%.
Yeah. And lower your overall risk of dying from anything by over 20%. Plus, it specifically mentions protection for your brain against diseases like Alzheimer's.
Those are really significant numbers. Hard to ignore.
Definitely. It also throws in vitamin D, great for bones, and something called astaxanthin. That's an antioxidant that helps protect your cells, even your skin cells, from damage.
And like the turkey, the source is really specific about the kind of salmon, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely crucial. Wild caught, not farmed. The source warns pretty strongly about potential chemicals and pollutants in farmed salmon environments.
Okay, so wild caught is the way to go.
Yeah.
How does it suggest cooking it?
Simple methods again. Grill it, bake it, flake it onto a salad. Keep it clean to get the benefits.
Got it. Okay, last one on the must-eat list, and this one might raise some eyebrows given all the anti-red meat talk we hear. Grass-fed beef.
Right. This is where the source really pushes back against that general red meat is bad idea. It argues that, look, most studies lump all beef together, but the source says there's a massive difference between factory-farmed, grain-fed beef. The stuff often raised with antibiotics, hormones, high in unhealthy fats, and grass-fed beef. The animal's natural diet makes the meat fundamentally different.
So the source is saying it's all about how the cow was raised and what it ate. That changes the meat itself.
That's exactly its argument. And it claims grass-fed beef has real benefits. It's supposedly richer in healthy fats, especially CLA, conjugated linoleic acid.
CLA? What's that do?
Well, the source says it might help your body burn stored fat, could lower cancer risk, and maybe even helps your body use insulin better. Plus, grass-fed beef has heme iron.
Heme iron, that's the easily absorbed kind.
Yeah.
Good for energy.
Yep, prevents fatigue. And the source links it to keeping your brain sharp, too. That's a direct cognitive benefit for aging.
Interesting. What else?
It's also highlighted as being packed with zinc and B vitamins, like B6, B12, essential for nerve health, wound healing, mental clarity.
And it specifically mentions B12 for older adults, doesn't it?
It does. Notes that B12 deficiency is surprisingly common as we age and can lead straight to memory loss, confusion, even depression. The source suggests just a couple of servings of grass-fed beef a week could help keep those B12 levels up. Good for bones, good for the brain.
So this source isn't anti-red meat across the board. It's saying the source and quality are everything.
That is the crucial distinction it makes. But it still recommends moderation, small portions, treat it like a nutrient boost, not the main feature every single day, and always pair it with lots of colorful vegetables.
Okay, that's a good wrap-up of the 4 meats the source says are beneficial. Now, let's flip the crank. The source uses really strong language for the next group, silent killers.
Yeah, and it wants to be crystal clear. The first list gives you things that help your body. This next list, according to the source, contains things that actively damage it and speed up age-related issues.
Right. Let's dive into the meats the source says you should never touch. First on this danger list, probably a sad one for many, bacon and sausage.
Yeah, the source basically says, look, we know it tastes good, but the big problems are the insane levels of sodium, saturated fat, and preservatives.
What does it say those things do?
They wreak havoc, is the phrase used. Damage your heart, clog arteries, just leave you feeling sluggish and drained.
And I remember seeing some pretty scary stats linked to these in the source material.
Oh, yeah. According to this source, regularly eating processed meats like bacon and sausage ups your risk of dying from heart disease by 44%.
44?
And your risk of dying from cancer, up 21%. It specifically calls out compounds formed during the curing process from the chemicals used as being cancer-causing.
So it's not just the fat and salt we see, it's the actual processing creating harmful stuff.
Exactly. The source basically calls them empty calories, almost no real nutrition. Says every bite is packed with damage. Just avoid them if you care about your long-term health.
Okay. Next up, corned beef and other cured meats, like pastrami, salami, maybe ham, often holiday or comfort foods, but the source says they're a really high risk for seniors.
The number one issue here, salt. Just astronomical amounts of sodium. The source claims a single serving can blow through more than half your daily sodium limit.
Wow. And why is that super high salt intake especially bad as you get older, according to the source?
Well, it jacks up blood pressure, puts a massive strain on your kidneys, and seriously increases your risk for stroke and heart failure. And interestingly, the source also links high sodium intake directly to memory problems.
Memory loss from salt. That's one people might not connect.
Right. And beyond the salt, the preservatives used in these meats, also flagged. They cause chronic inflammation, contribute to insulin resistance, damage blood vessel linings over time. It's a cascade of problems leading to disease.
And the source has a pretty definitive take on eating these if you're over 60.
It's stark. It basically says there's no safe level for these meats after 60 because your body just doesn't heal or recover from that kind of daily assault as well as it used to.
Okay, now for that one we teased earlier, the potentially surprising one, processed turkey and chicken. We're talking deli slices, chicken sausages, those preformed patties, stuff people often grab thinking it's the healthier choice.
And the source just shuts that down, very bluntly says these processed poultry options are just as dangerous as bacon and salami.
Wow, that's quite the claim. What makes them so bad in the source's view?
Same culprits, mostly. Packed with sodium, nitrates, other preservatives, all the stuff that increases risk for cancer, heart disease, kidney issues. The source actually cites a stat. Eating just 2 slices of deli meat daily is claimed to raise colon cancer risk by 18%.
And why is the impact potentially worse for older adults?
Well, the source explains that as digestion can slow down and kidney function might not be quite as robust, your body has a harder time processing and getting rid of all those chemicals. So they hang around longer, do more damage.
The source also made a point about how some of these are made, didn't it? Something kind of unappetizing?
Yeah. And mentioned some are made from restructured scraps held together with glue and chemicals, which sounds awful, and the source claims makes them harder to digest and bad for your gut health.
Yikes.
So the advice is clear. Skip all processed poultry. Stick to the real, whole chicken or turkey breast you cook yourself.
Okay. And finally, the source points to what it calls the worst meat of all, which is conventional beef and pork, meaning the standard stuff from factory farms.
Right, and this loops back to the grass-fed discussion. The source argues that the typical factory farm conditions, unnatural grain diets, routine antibiotics, create meat that's high in unhealthy inflammatory fats. And it can even contain residues, potentially, antibiotics, maybe pesticides from the feed.
So it's saying the environment in the feed fundamentally changed the meat you end up eating, making it potentially harmful.
That's the core argument. And it backs this up with more stats. Consuming this kind of conventional meat increases risk of death from heart disease by 27% and from cancer by 16%.
And there are other issues too.
Yeah, it claims it can mess with your good gut bacteria, make you more vulnerable to nasty infections.
Which, again, is a bigger risk for older adults, maybe dealing with weaker immune systems.
Exactly. The source even makes a point about nostalgia, saying, look, the meat available in supermarkets today, the factory farm stuff, it's different from what older folks might remember eating growing up. It's filled with chemicals your body simply can't handle anymore.
So, bottom line from this source, to protect your health as you age, this conventional meat is one to cut out completely.
That's the strong, unequivocal message, yes.
Okay, wow. Let's try and pull this all together. A quick recap of this deep dive based on our source's advice for meat eaters over 60.
Okay, so the source champions 4 friends: turkey breast, fresh, skinless chicken thigh, wild-caught salmon, and grass-fed beef in moderation. These get the thumbs up for lean protein, good fats like omega-3s and CLA, plus key nutrients like selenium, iron, zinc, B vitamins, all vital for muscle, brain, heart, and fighting inflammation. The keys are whole, unprocessed, wild-caught for salmon, grass-fed for beef, and pairing with veggies.
And then the 4 silent killers to avoid, according to the source: bacon and sausage, corned beef and other cured meats, pastrami, salami, processed turkey and chicken like deli slices, and conventional factory farmed pigs and pork. These get flagged for excessive sodium, bad fats, preservatives like nitrates, potential toxins. The source links them to much higher risks of heart disease, cancer, kidney damage, even memory issues, especially warning older adults.
Right. The big takeaway from the source is really about conscious choice. What you put in your shopping cart, what you put on your plate. It has real power to shape your health trajectory as you age. It's urging mindfulness about where your meat comes from and how it's processed.
It really does hammer home that difference, doesn't it? Processed versus whole. Factory farmed versus grass-fed or wild. It's not just chicken or beef, it's which chicken or beef.
Exactly. The production method becomes a huge part of its nutritional profile or lack thereof, according to this source.
So maybe a final thought for you, based purely on what this source suggests. How does this really sharp distinction it draws between, say, conventional booze and grass-fed beef, or deli turkey versus a fresh turkey breast, how does that maybe change the way you think about meat choices more broadly? Not just for over 60s, but maybe, for everyone.
That's a great question. It certainly makes you think harder about looking past the label on the front, doesn't it? Understanding the backstory of your food.
Right. And as this source really emphasizes, making those informed choices, even small shifts, could add up to making a big difference in how you feel, how you function for years to come. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.